Hey, I'm Meredith Anderson, 28 years old, doing great in the marketing world. But my family life? That's a whole different story. Let me take you back to where it all began 20 years ago. My mom, Linda, was about to give birth to my little sister, Sophie. Everything was fine, until it wasn't. Mom's heart stopped suddenly, and my dad, Robert, had to make an impossible choice. Save my mom or save the baby. He chose to save mom. Sophie survived, but her brain was damaged. Meredith, honey, can you help Sophie with lunch? Mom's voice snaps me back to the present. I look at Sophie, now 20, but mentally still like a toddler. Sure, Mom, I reply, trying not to sound frustrated. Dad walks in, looking guilty as always. How's my girl doing today? He asks Sophie, not really expecting her to answer. She's fine, Robert, Mom says sharply. The tension in the room is thick. Dad leaves to bury himself in work like usual. I'm heading out, I say, grabbing my keys. But it's family dinner night, Mom protests. I've got a big presentation tomorrow, I explain. Mom looks disappointed but nods. As I walk out, I hear Sophie trying to say my name. It breaks my heart every time. The next day at work, I'm on fire. My boss, Mr. Thompson, is impressed with my presentation. Anderson, you've outdone yourself, he says, smiling. Keep this up, and that corner office might be yours soon. I feel proud. This is what I've been working for, to prove that despite my difficult family situation, I can still succeed. Later, I'm having coffee with my best friend Jess. You look exhausted, she says. I sigh. Just the usual family drama. What if Sophie? I start but stop myself. If Sophie what? Jess asks. Nothing. I shake my head. I feel guilty even thinking about it. You can't keep bottling this up, Jess says kindly. Have you thought about therapy? I scoff. And say what? That I resent my sister for existing. I'm not a monster. That's not what I meant, Jess says firmly. I know she's right, but I'm not ready to face all of that. Instead, I focus on work, building a life away from the chaos at home. As I drive home that night, I wonder, how long can I keep running from my past? How long before it catches up with me? Little did I know, the real storm was about to hit, and it would change everything. When I was 13, my world fell apart. It was a hot summer evening, and I was heading to the kitchen for a snack when I heard them, Mom and Dad, arguing loudly from their bedroom. How long, Robert? How long has this been going on? Mom's voice was filled with anger. Linda, please, it's not what you think, Dad tried to explain. Not what I think. I found the text. Robert, you've been sleeping with your secretary. My heart raced. I pressed myself against the wall, frozen in shock. It started before Sophie was born. I was weak, Dad admitted. Before Sophie? You mean when I was pregnant? When our daughter almost died? Mom's voice was full of hurt. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dad had cheated while Mom was pregnant with Sophie. I ended it, Linda. I swear, Dad said desperately. Liar, there are messages from just last week. Mom shot back. I must have made a noise because suddenly, the argument stopped. The door opened and Dad stood there, pale as he saw me. Meredith, honey. I didn't let him finish. I ran out of the house, down the street, not stopping until I reached the park. I collapsed onto a swing, sobbing. Hours later, Dad found me. Meredith, we need to talk, he said gently. How could you? I shouted. How could you do this to Mom? To us? Dad sighed heavily. I made a terrible mistake, but your mother and I, we're working through it for the family. For Sophie, can you please keep this between us? I wanted to scream and tell Mom everything, but the thought of our family falling apart was too much. So I nodded, even though it broke my heart. The next few years were a blur. I threw myself into my studies, doing anything to avoid being home. The weight of Dad's secret crushed me, especially when I looked at Mom. My only escape was Miss Patterson, my guidance counselor. She noticed how withdrawn I was and how intensely I focused on school. Meredith, is everything okay at home? She asked one day. I almost broke down but couldn't betray my family. Just stressed about college applications, I lied. Miss Patterson didn't seem to believe me, but she didn't push. Instead, she became my mentor and helped me channel my pain into ambition. Before I knew it, graduation day arrived. As valedictorian, I stood at the podium, looking out at my classmates. Life doesn't always go as planned, I began. Sometimes we face challenges that seem impossible. But in those moments, we find our true strength. I saw Mom dabbing at her eyes, Dad looking proud but still guilty, and Sophie in her wheelchair, clapping excitedly even though she didn't understand why. Perseverance isn't just about pushing through hard times. It's about finding hope in the darkest moments and believing in yourself. When no one else does, I said, my voice cracking slightly, but I continued. We've all faced obstacles, some visible, some hidden. But we're here today because we refuse to let those obstacles define us. As I finished my speech to loud applause, I locked eyes with Miss Patterson. She nodded with a knowing look. I had made it this far, carrying the weight of my family's secrets. But as I stepped off the stage, I knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning of my journey. Fast forward 10 years, and I'm still carrying the weight of those family secrets. On the outside, my life looks perfect. Corner office, fancy title, everything I worked for. But my personal life, it's a mess. Meredith, we've been dating for a year. Don't you think it's time I met your family? Tom asks over dinner. I nearly choke on my wine. It's complicated, Tom. My sister. She needs a lot of care, and I trail off. And you've used that excuse every time, he says, sighing. What aren't you telling me? If only he knew. But how do you explain to the man you love that your family is a ticking time bomb? The next day, my mom calls, sounding frantic. Meredith, Sophie's care facility is raising their rates. We can't afford it. I rub my temples, feeling a headache coming on. How much, Mom? When she tells me the amount, my stomach drops. It's more than I can comfortably afford, but what choice do I have? I'll figure something out, I promise. But that's just the start. A week later, Mom shows up at my apartment, tears streaming down her face. I found emails, she sobs. Robert's affair, it wasn't just a fling. It went on for years, Meredith. Years. The guilt of keeping Dad's secret for so long overwhelms me. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have told you. Her eyes widen in shock. You knew? Before I can explain, my phone rings. It's Dad. Meredith, I need your help. The company's being sued. They're saying I falsified reports, but it's not true. You have to believe me. But I don't. Not anymore. Overwhelmed, I reach out to the one person who's always been there for me, Miss Patterson. During our coffee meetup, I confess, I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm betraying someone no matter what. Miss Patterson listens patiently, then leans forward. Meredith, you're not responsible for your father's actions. But you do have a choice in how you respond to them. Together, we come up with a plan. We'll anonymously tip off the authorities about Dad's business practices. It's not much, but it's a start. Just when I think things can't get any worse, Tom calls. You won't believe who I just saw at the school. A woman named Jessica was asking about you, Tom said over the phone. She said she knew your father. My blood ran cold. Jessica, Dad's former secretary. What was she doing back in town? I rushed to confront Dad, only to overhear him on the phone. Jessica, please, you can't do this. I'll lose everything, he begged. Then leave Linda. Jessica's voice crackled through the speaker, or I'll tell her everything. Dad's face fell. I need time, just give me a few days. As he hung up, he saw me standing in the doorway. The look of desperation in his eyes told me everything. Dad, what have you done? I asked. He broke down, confessing to a web of lies and financial wrongdoing that made my head spin. The father I thought I knew was a stranger to me. As I walked out of his office, I made a decision. It was time to stop protecting him. The truth had to come out. Little did I know, the storm that was about to hit would change everything. The day it all fell apart started like any other. I was at work when my phone exploded with notifications. Dad's company was under investigation by the SEC. My stomach churned, knowing what was coming. I rushed home to chaos. Mom was screaming at Dad, years of anger finally pouring out. You ruined our family. You chose your mistress over us, she shouted. Linda, please, I can explain, Dad tried. Sophie's caregiver, Maria, tried to step in. Please, Mr. Anderson, you're scaring Sophie. Stay out of this, Dad snapped, raising his hand. Maria flinched. That was the last straw. Maria reported Dad for verbal abuse, and everything began to unravel. Within weeks, Dad was forced to resign from his company. The scandal hit the local news, and then came the final blow. Jessica, realizing her benefits were gone, went public with the affair. Mom filed for divorce faster than I could blink. Through it all, I felt torn. Part of me felt vindicated, but another part felt guilty. Had I caused all of this by tipping off Miss Patterson? I finally broke down and told Tom everything. Mar, you did the right thing, he reassured me, holding me close. Your dad made his own choices. You're not responsible for his actions. His words were a comfort, easing the guilt I had carried. A year later, we were having a family dinner. Mom, Sophie, Tom, and me. The atmosphere was lighter. Mom was glowing. The support group is amazing, she said. I'm helping other parents navigate the challenges we face with Sophie. I smiled, watching Sophie happily munching on her favorite snack. She was thriving in her new care facility. Everything finally felt like it was falling into place. I have some news, I began. I have some news, I announced. Tom squeezed my hand, giving me encouragement. We're engaged. Mom's squeal of delight was deafening, and even Sophie clapped, sensing the excitement. Oh, and I got that promotion at work, I added as an afterthought. As we celebrated, my phone buzzed. It was Dad. Meredith, please, can we talk? I want to make things right. I stepped outside to take the call. Dad, I'm glad you're getting help, but I can't just forget everything that happened. I understand. I miss you, Pumpkin, he said, using my old nickname, which brought a lump to my throat. I hope you find peace, Dad, but right now, I need to focus on healing and on the family that's always been there for me. I ended the call, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Back inside, Mom was telling a story, gesturing excitedly while Sophie giggled, a sound so pure that it brought tears to my eyes. Tom looked at me with love and understanding. For the first time in years, I felt hope. We'd been through so much, but we had come out stronger. As I joined in the laughter, I realized that this is what family should feel like. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still challenges and wounds to heal. But looking at the faces around the table, I knew we'd face them together. And that was enough. Now, to answer your question. If I were in Meredith's shoes, it would be difficult to decide whether to expose my father's misdeeds earlier or keep them secret to protect the family. The decision between loyalty and justice is never easy. Sometimes protecting family means confronting the truth, even if it causes pain. In the long run, honesty may be the only path to healing. What do you think is the right choice? Would you expose the truth or keep it hidden for the sake of family?